All right, everybody. This is something new we're doing here. Actually, it's not too new. We're bringing it back from last year. This is the DN Sports Podcast. My name is Jack Williams. I am the sports editor of the Ball State Daily News, and here with me is Zach Piatt. He is the assistant sports editor of the Ball State Daily News.
Hello, hello.
And we'll be working together to give you all sorts of content, whether it's college related, Ball State related, professional related, whatever appeals to the audience just in general. We'll be working on that. And I think Robbie General got this started up last year, kind of died off a bit, but we're getting it started back up. So this first week, we're talking about March Madness out here, and right now we have Drew Pierce, one of our writers, and he's going to talk with us a bit about the tournament, and we're going to talk about our picks later. But right now, Drew has a really big statement he wants to make.
To say the least, I'd say.
Absolutely.
There's a small school out of the Southeastern Conference. I don't know if you heard of them, Louisiana State University Tigers. Drew has them winning the whole tournament. So,
Yep.
Drew, what comes to this claim?
And Jack, you say I have them winning the tournament. That is without a single doubt in my mind. That is no doubt in my mind that LSU is going to the national title game. To start, I mean, they're just hot. Of course they lost to Florida. They didn't win the SEC. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Florida was their Achilles heel all year. That's the third time they met, and they only won one of them, but the other one went to overtime. They go into overtime a ton. All of the 5 losses have been mostly within a couple points, and especially into overtime. So I'm looking at LSU to make a statement, ruin some brackets for sure. Not mine. It's gonna make my March. That's for sure.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely a statement for sure. I mean, I don't have my could you grab my bracket right behind you? Yeah.
Well, especially as a 3 seed, I want to say. I mean, LSU, I feel like, like you mentioned, the losses that they do have are basically they've all been pretty close outside of that 13-point loss to Oklahoma State.
And you'll get that on the big jobs. I'm not too worried about that.
Oh yeah.
Every team.
Well, especially
loses,
early
so.
on in the season,
Right,
that
yeah.
was against OK State.
Yeah.
So,
But they're facing a Duke team that's just been favored all year. How do you think they're going to get past that?
You know, that's the most worrisome I am, but I still believe that hopefully they can contain Zion at least a little bit. I still expect him to get a double-double with like 25 points. But as long as they can keep the pressure up on offense and not scramble, they tend to, when an opposing team kind of goes on like a 6-0, 8-0 run, they scramble. They don't use their full shot clock. They start throwing up contested shots, and then that ends up hurting them in the long run, like you saw against Florida a couple days ago. But if they can contain Zion at least a little bit and then shut down R.J. Barrett, it's home sweet home for them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that, especially with the comment. I just forgot it, but you made earlier about Florida. Yeah, that's what it was about, saying they were their Achilles heel, and They kind of got the best of them. I believe it was a good matchup, kind of like taking us back to the MAC whenever Northern Illinois plays Buffalo. Northern Illinois has beat them 2 straight years.
Right.
So I think that's just a good matchup. I think LSU is a very good team. However,
Absolutely.
I don't have them going as far as the national championship, but props to you.
well, yeah, and now LSU doesn't have to worry about Florida unless the 2 teams somehow both make it to the Final Four. And with Florida being a 10 seed and likely, if they win that first-round matchup against Nevada, likely having to play Michigan and then maybe Texas Tech, and with Gonzaga as the 1 seed in that region, I mean, it's going to be tough.
region.
It's going to be
It's a
tough
tough
for
part of
Florida
the
to get
region.
out of there, no doubt. So I have no doubt that LSU will probably make it a little farther than Florida, but I've got Michigan State actually beating LSU in the Sweet 16, and Jack, you brought up earlier about how they'll probably end up playing Duke. This is all assuming that Duke makes it that far. Like, I do have them going that far, but again, like, we've seen upsets. I mean, you saw last year Virginia UMBC, so.
Absolutely. I mean, you've seen a couple of years ago when Duke lost to Lehigh, and that goes down as one of the biggest upsets in tournament history. And yeah, there's definitely going to be some huge upsets in this tournament. But instead of just talking about the concept, let's jump into it. So we're going to have a few rules with this so it doesn't get too out of control. We're going to go matchup for matchup around the table. Guys going to talk a little bit about what the matchup is. We're going to go around, and then when we're done, if there's any conflicting opinions, we can discuss it. So I'll start off. We're going to start in the first round, Duke, NC Central versus North Dakota State. I mean, is there any sort of discussion with this? Not to sound any biased at all, but Duke has just been phenomenal all year, so I'm having them just blow past one of these two. Over to Drew.
Absolutely. The VCU UCF game, I'll be completely honest, I know nothing about either of these teams. I picked UCF just because, so I'm curious to see what you guys think of that matchup.
I actually chose VCU in that one, and I know that Shaka Smart is no longer coaching the Rams. He's actually over at Texas this year. But when Shaka Smart was coaching VCU, like they were always a problem. They were always an upset waiting to happen in any sort of tournament or during the regular season at all. And so I just feel like that team and that program has, over these last few years, without having Smart as at the helm, I think that they have kind of carried over that legacy as just that team that's always tough to deal with. And so that's why I chose VCU in this one.
For that UCF VCU matchup, I'm primarily focused on one guy for UCF, and I think that's what's going to lift him forward. Taco Fall. He's
How about it?
almost 8 feet tall,
Oh my
and
gosh, yeah.
the dude's a beast. And I think as much as I don't like UCF with the football and all of that, but this is basketball.
Yeah.
So I do think UCF does have the advantage here. However, this is going to be a very good game. VCU has a very storied past in the tournament. They had that huge upset and that run. I believe it was up to the Elite Eight, maybe the Final Four.
It was the Final Four. I remember because they played Purdue in the first round. It was a 5-12 matchup, and the reason they laugh, guys, is because they know that I'm a huge Purdue fan. So Purdue is a 5 seed getting upset in the first round hit me a little hard.
Mm-hmm. So that's going to be a very strong matchup as well too. Heading into 5-12. Mississippi State and Liberty. This is going to be a close one as well too. I personally had Mississippi State. The SEC has just been completely different than has been in other years as well too. Mississippi State started off very strong. Now they're kind of middle of the pack, but I think they're going to get over Liberty. Just looking at their stats just in general. Drew, what do you think about this matchup?
I do have Liberty. I can't put too much fact behind why I chose that. I like the idea of an upset over an SEC team, other than LSU, of course. But Liberty is not playing bad at 28-6. I mean, they've had a solid year. Hopefully, they are hungry enough to keep it going.
I also had Liberty. This was actually the very last game that I filled in. I had everything filled out, including the Final Four and the championship game, but this was the last game I came back to because it was so tough for me. And after looking at the rest of the bracket, I was like, you know what, it's kind of a toss-up, so why not give it to the underdog?
Absolutely. This game could go either way as well, too. This is going to be another highly contested one. Jumping down 4-13, Virginia Tech and St. Louis. After what I've seen Virginia Tech do this entire season, including the Ball State, I'm picking Virginia Tech here.
Second that.
Yep.
All right, we can move on to that. 6-11, Maryland and the 11th seed, either Belmont or Temple. I think we can agree that Temple is going to take that 11 game. Do you know what? This could be highly contested as well, too. All these games up for grabs. Temple, as Zach continuously says, they've been very good throughout the tournament every year. They've broken a lot of brackets. However, I had Maryland. Zach, do you want to talk a little bit about Temple?
I initially had Maryland, actually, but after looking at it, I think it was Greg Gumbel said so in Selection Sunday not too long ago. He mentioned that Maryland is the fourth youngest team in all of Division I basketball.
Wow.
And so, like, when it comes to tournament time, you definitely have to take maturity and experience into account. And especially with Temple having their storied past of being those bracket busters, like you said, I feel like Temple's going to get past Belmont, and then I've got Temple coming in with another upset as well.
Drew, what do you got?
Sure.
All right.
I have Maryland. Temple, I think, as just kind of reflecting on what you guys said, Temple will be that 11th seed. But I just think Maryland's too quick, and it's just gonna outrun them that game.
Jumping down to more of the Jacksonville first round, LSU number 3 and Yale number 14. I have LSU, but after what we've been talking about, just with what Yale did to Harvard, just in general, and completely blew them out. I mean, yeah, it's the Ivy League, but I mean, that was a big win. So this game probably could go either way. It's going to be tight, or I think LSU might just take off with it.
I honestly think that the Tigers are going to pull this one out pretty well and pretty handedly. However, like you do have to keep Yale in mind because Harvard has kind of become a team who, out of the Ivy League, has kind of just been a perennial team that comes into the tournament every year because they win the Ivy League tournament. But now that Yale beat them in the championship and by quite a bit of a margin, I mean, you have to keep them in mind. But I don't think LSU will really have all that much trouble.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think LSU is going to win this by at least 20.
I think we might have heard enough of you about LSU so far.
I hate to say it because I watched the Yale Harvard and they beat them 97-85, just like very dominant, and people tend to sleep on the Ivy League maybe a little too much. But of course they have to be matched up against LSU, and they will run the court.
I mean, the Ivy is just an interesting conference just in general. I mean, you had Penn last year completely blew through that conference, and then years before that, you had Yale made that run too. A lot of people weren't expecting them to win. I had the upset, but they upset. They went forward. So the Ivy really can go either way. It's a very competitive conference. Moving forward, where was I? Yeah. Louisville,
Minnesota.
And Minnesota. I have Minnesota winning this. Louisville, in my opinion, has been very inconsistent this year. When they've gotten to those big matchups, they've choked. And they really haven't been able to move forward. And another middle-of-the-pack ACC team. However, Minnesota has surprised a lot of people. During the regular season, they were on and off. But when they need to perform, they perform.
Well, yeah, going off of that, I mentioned earlier how I follow Purdue. Minnesota, I also have Minnesota winning this game. I agreed with everything you said about Louisville. But going off of Purdue, they were ahead of the Big Ten, and they controlled their own destiny. All they had to do was win their last 2 games, and Minnesota just came in and said, nope, we're going to put a stop to that. So Minnesota beat Purdue there, and then they went and beat Purdue in the quarterfinals of the Big Ten tournaments twice in a row. And so, I mean, with Purdue being a 3 seed on the other side of the bracket, Minnesota, not to say they got disrespected with a 10 seed, but I feel like they could definitely compete with I wouldn't say anybody in the tournament, but a lot of teams.
Yes. I mean, I also have Minnesota. Being in such a tough conference and doing as well as they did, I like them.
Mm-hmm. Next matchup, Drew's going to hate me for this. He put a whole rebuttal in when he thought LSU was going to take on Bradley. And, I mean, he's from Illinois like myself, so a lot of kids go to that school, and I know how kids get from Illinois schools when their teams start doing well. Michigan State, Bradley. Bradley has grinded, and I feel like they can do some damage in this tournament. Michigan State has a history of choking to teams like Middle Tennessee in the first round. I think Bradley's going to grind this out, and they're going to get the first round win.
Really?
I do. I think I have a few big ones in here. I think Bradley's going to do some work here. Drew mentioned they had a really bad loss to Missouri State. However, they came back in that Missouri Valley tournament and beat them. They had 3 straight close wins in the Missouri Valley tournament. I think this team is a grinding team, and they're going to do some damage. This is what March Madness is all about. It's about teams that can grind. It's about teams that can just go for it and win. So I think Bradley's one of those teams. Drew, I'm going to give you some time to rebuttal there.
Yeah. As much as I love watching Michigan State lose, I don't think they will. Straight up, especially after watching them tonight against Michigan. You're talking about a grinding team. They're grinding it out for sure. Bradley, I think they're definitely not a bad team, but they got overhyped a lot because they beat Loyola in the conference tournament. even though Loyola didn't really have that great of a year compared to last year. I really don't think I think this will be about a 6-point differential. I think it'll be close up until the end where Michigan State will get the edge.
Couple of points on that one. You mentioned how Michigan State kind of has a history of choking. They also kind of have a history of going to the Final Four.
That's true.
Because in the years that I've been following March Madness, it has been for Michigan State, especially when they have a higher seed, which tends to be just about every year. They either lose in the first round, or once they get past that first round, they're going all the way. And I just feel like Michigan State, they're just not going to lose this one. And my other point that I wanted to make was you talked about how Bradley was this grinding team who just never gives up. And did you watch the Big Ten championship today?
I did not catch it. No.
They were down by double digits in the first half and early in the second half, but they came back. They scored the last 10 points of the game to beat Michigan by 5. So I mean, when you talk about a grinding team, Michigan State is definitely one of those as well. So I got to give them the edge.
Well, it's probably going to be very blue-collared battle back and forth. It's probably going to be two teams that are going to be clawing for it either way, two teams that know how to work. Heading into, I don't know what regional
West.
this is.
Let's go to the
Regional,
West.
yes. I didn't see the labels. Oh, there they are. Anaheim. Okay. This one's going to be in Salt Lake City. Gonzaga, Farley Dixon, and Prairie View.
Whoever that is.
Yeah.
So in other words, Gonzaga.
Yeah. Heading down, Salt Lake number 2, 8-9. This is going to be a big game as well, too. Tough matchup. Syracuse and Baylor. I like the Qs just in the tournament in general. This is a team that kind of everybody sleeps on. They get really good during the season, during the ACC, and they have that point where they fall off and they kind of disappear. And then they come back in March. I think it was 2 years ago. People were getting really angry because they were playing very chippy, but that got them far in the tournament. I've heard nothing from Baylor this entire season. It's a team that really hasn't stood out to me. Syracuse is another team that grinds, in my opinion, and I think they're going to get the upset here. Well, not upset. Highly contested game.
A lot of times I definitely feel like these 8 and 9 matchups are a toss-up. And this one was probably the biggest toss-up of the entire tournament for me. But in the end, I decided to go with Syracuse.
Yeah, I went Syracuse, especially them having such a difficult ACC schedule. I mean, they played a lot of big games, a lot of close games, and I do think that they will win.
All right. Well, we kind of have our decision there with Syracuse going on into the Hartford Regional. 5 Marquette, 12 Murray State.
Here's where things get interesting.
Yes, this is going to be an interesting game. In my opinion, Marquette is a good team. But they have a guy that's primarily what makes them good. He put down, I can't remember his name. His name Jackson?
Couldn't tell you.
All right. Well, there's a guy on their team. We were doing this very spontaneously, so I didn't have enough time to research. However,
I could tell you the guy from Murray State.
There is a guy from Missouri State, and I think he's going to be the difference.
Murray State, not Missouri.
Murray
on, Jack,
State, yes,
right.
from the OVC. Yes, Missouri State is in that. We're talking about Bradley. I'm getting this mixed up in my head. No. Murray State from the Ohio Valley Conference. His name is Ja. He is unbelievable. He's expected to go big in the NBA draft, and he is basically guided this Murray State team to the title in the OVC, and I think he's going to do more in this tournament. So I have Murray State, the 12, upsetting Marquette, the 5.
Coming into today, Selection Sunday, I pictured myself having Marquette in at least the Sweet 16 and maybe even a dark horse heading into the Elite 8. But then I watched it all unfold, and I watched them say Murray State is who they're going to play. And I said, if it was any other 12 seed in this entire bracket, I would have had Marquette going. But nope, Murray State, Ja Morant, I've got Murray State winning that matchup.
Yeah, I love watching 12 seeds beat 5 seeds. I think that's awesome because the upset is fun. I'm going to have to go with them as well.
All right, heading down 4-13, Florida State, Vermont. I have Florida State here.
Yeah, not even close.
Yeah, I do as well.
All right, heading down to 6-11, our friend, I say friend very lightly, Buffalo 31-3 as a 6, taking on either Arizona State and St. John's. I think this is going to be a close game. I think St. John's is going to win that first 4.
I do as well.
However, I think they're going to challenge Buffalo, but from what we've seen Buffalo do this entire year as a MAC school, like just beating us up and other schools up, it's Buffalo.
Yeah, I don't think there's any argument to that either.
Absolutely.
All right, heading down further, Texas Tech in Northern Kentucky. Boy Taylor Persons is from Northern Kentucky, transferred from there here to Ball State. But 3-14, Texas Tech, just a good program there. I have the Red Raiders getting through there.
Texas Tech, I saw last year. Again, another team who beat my Boilers in the Sweet 16 last year. But Texas Tech was really good last year, but I think they're even better this year. So with them being a 3 seed both years, I definitely think they're going to make another run this year.
I have a little bit of a hot take for you there.
Right.
I am pushing Texas Tech to the Final Four. I think that they are solid, and I do think that they can take down Michigan if that matchup comes down the line, which I think it will. I think Texas Tech is just all-round gritty, and they can get it done.
I have you on that, too. I have Texas Tech in the Final Four as well.
See, I believe going down the road in the Sweet 16, I am having Texas Tech against Michigan there. That was the hardest game that I had to pick in my bracket, and it came down to like one of those coin flip type deals, and the reason that I ended up actually choosing Michigan, I chose Michigan to go to the Final Four, was because you just look at the experience and you look at the history of the program, and just John Beilein has taken the Wolverines so far for so many years, and I just feel like it comes down to their defensive intensity, and it also comes down to, hey, their experience, they're used to this atmosphere, and I just feel like that is what is going to push them over that hump.
Mm-hmm. Heading down into the Des Moines regional first round as well, not regional, just a game in Des Moines. Nevada and Florida. Kind of a hot take on this as well, too. I have Nevada. I think Florida is in this tournament primarily because of their 2 wins over LSU. And
Absolutely.
I think it's a good matchup. I think that those teams are very evenly matched by their rosters. However, when you put Florida against anyone else, it's going to be different. It's not going to be a big upset. And Nevada's been consistent all year. They have been that mid-major team who has been so good. They've been hanging out just till now in the top 25. I have Nevada doing well in this game and winning through. They got as far as the Elite 8. No, it wasn't the Elite 8. It was the Sweet 16, I think.
They did go. They did go to the Elite 8, I thought. But I mean, either way, they made a deep run.
Yeah, I think they got to the Sweet 16 because in the Elite 8, Loyola played. I think it was Kansas State, and Loyola beat Nevada to get to that game.
Right. Yep.
So,
that is true. That is what it was.
So Nevada has experience, and Florida. I mean, I don't remember the last time this team was in the tournament. It could have been that long ago.
Throwback to Joakim Noah.
Oh yeah,
when they won the whole thing.
I miss him. Bulls fan, I miss him. But yeah, I have Nevada there.
I mean, absolutely. Florida, I'm even surprised they got a 10 seed, to be completely honest. I mean, the game in the SEC tournament when they beat LSU, in my opinion, had a very controversial ending. There's some pretty bad officiating that led to some kind of controversial calls and put Florida on top. I'm surprised they're a 10 seed even in this tournament at all. I'm putting Nevada over by a lot.
I actually went with Florida because, I mean, it seems like every year there's always that team that, like you guys mentioned, you guys are confused as to why they're even there in the first place. But like almost every year, it seems like that team wins in the first round, and I have no better reason other than that just to say that, hey, yeah. I think Florida is going to be that team this year.
Mm-hmm. Heading down into the final matchup in the West Regional, Michigan, number 2, Montana 15. I have Michigan here.
I don't think this really is up for too much debate. I hate to say that. No disrespect to Montana, but Michigan is strong.
Disrespecting my Grizz.
I don't see any debate either. No.
All right. Well, we're gonna jump over to the South Regional in Louisville. Another 116 matchup, Virginia and Gardner Webb. However, I don't know. I don't think this is ever going to happen again. And if it does, it's going to be a long time from now. Virginia, we obviously know, was a won last year, lost to University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I have Virginia winning this. Hopefully, I'm right.
I agree with that as well. People, yourself included, Jack, have kind of teased me saying, well, Virginia lost to a 16 seed last year. It's like, okay, here's the thing, though. They've got a lot of guys coming back for them. They know how it felt last year the same time against UMBC. And I just feel like there's no way in the world that it's even a possibility that Virginia loses another 116 matchup.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks, Drew.
So it's going to get a little jumbled up here into another matchup in Columbia. Ole Miss, Oklahoma, 8-9. These 8-9s are always really tough. I had to do some research in this one. I had Ole Miss. Like I said, the SEC has been really weird this season. It's been really competitive and a lot different than it has been in past years.
They're a football and basketball conference
exactly
this year.
And Oklahoma, I looked into, they went on a winning streak with their non-conference play, and then they went on a long losing streak in conference play. We obviously know the Big 12 is competitive, but I mean, losing streaks, we know that how that works, and it's not good. So I had Ole Miss winning this.
I had Ole Miss as well. Unlike you, I did zero research, and I just like saying Ole Miss. I'll be completely honest. I like the name over
I like the blind side,
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, yeah.
It doesn't roll off the tongue as well as Ole Miss, so I'm definitely putting them through.
You could sing the song.
Well,
O-K-L-A.
Well, Oklahoma doesn't have Trae Young this year, and also I like the blind side, so Ole Miss.
All right.
Amen to that.
So we're going to move down. San Jose game, Wisconsin, Oregon.
It's a toughie.
It is a toughie, but from what I've just heard about the Pac-12 this year, what I've seen with the Pac-12 this year, I know Oregon's a good team, but Pac-12 has just been garbage this year. That's really harsh, but
Wow.
wow.
Throwing punches.
The Pac-12 has just been kind of slow this year, and the Big Ten has been the opposite of that, and Wisconsin's been a team that's been consistent with it, kind of in the upper middle. I think Wisconsin's winning this game.
Yeah, I have Wisconsin as well. I do think that this might be the closest 5-12 seed game that we'll see in this tournament. I know Oregon, they kind of flew under the radar, and now they're just like showing up, and they've got a few wins under their belt. But I think Wisconsin, just like you're talking about with Michigan, just tournament experience is there for Wisconsin.
Well, and Jack, to your point, you said, the Big Ten and how it's been so competitive this year. And I honestly believe that is why the Big Ten doesn't have one or possibly two 1 seeds this year. Because, I mean, you look at Michigan and Michigan State. Purdue surprised a lot of people this year. I'm not saying that just because I'm a fan that they deserve a higher seed, but it's like, those top 3 teams, Michigan, Michigan State especially, those two definitely had a case for a number 1 seed. But I think because the Big Ten just beats up on each other so much during the conference schedule, I mean, Wisconsin's one of those teams that can definitely go a long way. And, yeah, I have them winning this one.
Drew. Wisconsin.
Yep.
Oregon.
Yeah,
Oh, you
I
already
already
said
did Wisconsin.
Okay, I'm
We're
sorry.
good.
I must have
God,
spaced out
you're
there. Next matchup, I think a lot of us have this one team going far. Kansas State. They were really impressive last year. They'll be taking on UC Irvine. To any argument to UC Irvine, I happen to stay up for the WAC championship. And they blew out Cal State Fullerton. But no, I have Kansas State here. Almost went there, but yeah, I have KSU.
I have Kansas State as well, and Kansas State is one of those teams that I've got Purdue in the Final Four just because I do. But if I'm being completely honest with myself, I have Kansas State winning this one. I have Kansas State beating Wisconsin, and then I have them beating Virginia in the Sweet 16, and that brings up a matchup for me against Purdue, and so that's where it's like, I'm really liking Kansas State right now, and it's like I just don't know, but yeah, Kansas State, I feel like they're gonna make another deep run this year.
I am very similar, but I take it a step further. I do have K-State in my Final Four. I think, I don't know. They're just so solid.
I like it.
I definitely want to see Virginia lose. No offense to Virginia, but, come on.
Mm-hmm.
So Kansas State for me in the Final Four.
I like it.
Hartford matchups. Number 6 Villanova taking on number 11 St. Mary's. This is a really big pick. I think all of us, or at least most of us, kind of agreed. My opinion, Villanova has not been Villanova this year.
No.
Sitting at a 25, I don't think that's sat well with the team. They have 25 wins, ranked 25. Anyway, but St. Mary's, they were able to hold down Gonzaga, and that was extremely impressive to win their conference. I have St. Mary's College winning this.
I do as well, and I also saw the highlights of that game and just how they were able to. They actually beat Gonzaga fairly handedly. It wasn't like one of those where Gonzaga had it and then St. Mary's came out of nowhere, But yeah, definitely to your point, Villanova, they don't have the Player of the Year this year. They're not obviously not a 1 seed. They're down all the way to a 6 the following year after winning the championship. But St. Mary's, that's just another upset that I like, and I saw it from the get-go, and I was like, yep, that's going to happen.
Yes. Yes, St. Mary.
All right. Second matchup in Hartford. I think we could just skip this.
Well, I won't comment if you don't want me to. I'll let you guys argue it out.
Purdue, Old
I don't think there's
Dominion.
much of an argument.
Purdue.
Yes, Purdue. I honestly don't even think this is going to be that good of a game to watch. To be completely honest, I love close games. I don't think this will be one of them. I think Purdue will run away.
Boiler up.
Also, I want to jump back to the where was it? The Villanova St. Mary's game.
Mm-hmm.
I said the game before Cal State Fullerton and UC Irvine was a WAC game. St. Mary's and Gonzaga playing the WAC. That was Big West. So I wanted to correct that. It's just the journalist in me wanting to correct myself. Anyway.
Editor's note.
Yeah, editor's note. Can't put that at the top. Going into Columbus games, Cincinnati, Iowa. This is probably going to be another contested one as well, too. But I had Cincinnati coming out here. They've had a really impressive season.
I do as well, and actually another hot take for you. I got Cincy beating Tennessee in the next round as well. Setting up a matchup with my Boilers in the Sweet 16. I know that's a big one over Tennessee, but, you got to have them somewhere, and that's where I'm throwing my chips. So.
I'm right behind you. I have Cincinnati over Tennessee. Cincinnati's I think they're. If you think of grit in college basketball, I think Cincinnati. They beat out who was at Houston for their title today or yesterday, and I think they can get it done over the Vols.
Well, going to the next game. I'm still in the first round, guys. 2 Tennessee, 15 Colgate. One of our writers, or I think it might have been Drew, that said, they're like, who's Colgate? And Drew's like, it's the toothpaste school. I have Tennessee winning this.
Yep, no question for me.
Literally the only time I've ever heard of Colgate is when I brush my teeth. I don't think they'll do anything.
They do have a good hockey program, but that's all I know about Colgate.
This ain't the Frozen Four, so we'll get there.
I know somebody who runs for them too, but that's my knowledge about Colgate. Anyway, jumping down into Columbus.
Our final region.
Midwest region, yes, final region. Took us about a half hour to get there, but 1 UNC, 16 Iona. The only thing I know about Iona is Luke Brown got an offer there, but no, UNC. That team's once again very good this season. I think they're gonna get there, and I personally have them winning the whole thing.
I got UNC there as well, no doubt, and I've got UNC making it to the championship game, but I've got Duke versus UNC Chapter 4 this year, and I've got the Blue Devils pulling it out. So,
definitely UNC. I think they will roll Iona. I don't think it'll be close, and I have them in my championship game as well.
Absolutely. Columbus, game 2, 8-9, Utah State, Washington. This just goes in the Pac-12 argument again. Washington is a good team. They're talented. But Pac-12 has just been lacking this season. Utah State, I've heard them all throughout the season. They're a very good team. So I have I think the Aggies. Yeah, I have the Aggies winning this.
I do as well. Utah State.
Yep.
Yep. All right. Moving
Nice
down.
discussion on this
Yeah.
one. And I wanted to backtrack one game here. Drew, you said North Carolina, you had them in a championship against who again?
Against the LSU Tigers.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I thought I forgot for a second.
Absolutely.
The Louisiana State University Tigers.
Sorry, I just wanted to throw that in there.
Heading down to Salt Lake City, you have 5, Auburn, 12, New Mexico State. A lot of people have talked about New Mexico State, but I mean, from what we've seen Auburn do in this SEC tournament and win it and beat some pretty good teams, I have Auburn here.
Oh, I have Auburn as well, mainly looking at exactly what you said earlier today. They absolutely just took apart Tennessee in the championship game, and it surprised me. But I mean, looking at what Bruce Pearl has done with that program, and I mean they are rolling right now, and so I've got Auburn winning that game, and then also moving on into the Sweet 16.
Yep.
All right. This next game, this is probably my hottest take of the night.
Ooh. Oh boy.
It's Salt Lake City, number 4 Kansas, and number 13 Northeastern. I saw Northeastern early in the season when they played in Charleston, and I've heard a lot about them. They took down a really good Alabama team that was I think they were last 4 out. Alabama.
Alabama was one of the first 4 out, yeah.
Well, yeah, first 4. That's what I meant. They didn't get in, so I felt like it was last, but they were first not to. So yeah, they almost made it. I have a lot of faith in Northeastern. Kansas, I like Kansas, but they've just not been there this season. I think this is going to be the upset of the tournament. I have Northeastern beating Kansas.
It's been weird to see Kansas not be the Kansas of
the number
previous
1
year.
seed.
Yeah, exactly. So like seeing Kansas not as a 1 or a 2 seed, because that's what they are, it seems, every single year. They're either a 1 or maybe a 2. But this year to see them drop down to a 4 was very weird for me to see, and just they've been kind of shaky with 9 losses. But I mean, either way, I like I mentioned earlier, I think the experience and the tournament resume that they have, I feel like that is going to push them to a victory in the first round. But then, as I was praising Auburn in that last game, I think Auburn will be the one to take them out.
Yeah, I know, at least from a few years past, when you think of Duke, UNC, Villanova, I mean, Kansas is in that mix.
Oh, 100%.
At least in the past, they've been the 1 or 2 seed. They've had, they won, 25 games, but it's been a disappointing season by KU standards.
Yeah.
I still have them. I don't have them going very far, but I do have them beating Northeastern. Like you said, the tournament resume helps. It'd be interesting to see how much that actually helps, though, in general.
I don't know. I have a lot of faith in Northeastern school from Boston. They ended their season on a winning streak, and I don't know. I think this team has it for some reason. I just feel something special with them.
It'll be interesting.
It definitely would be. So jumping down to kind of our final pod of brackets, in Tulsa, Iowa State, Ohio State, probably another very competitive game. Iowa State won the Big 12, and they've been a pretty good team all year. They've been the very most consistent team in the Big 12 that hasn't fallen off or they haven't taken off. They've stayed kind of where they are, kind of in the middle or the kind of the lower part of the top. I have Iowa State winning this.
I do as well. I mean, looking at Ohio State, they were one of those last 4 teams in, having beat IU in the second round of the Big Ten tournament, which that's a whole nother story. But I definitely agree with the selection committee of leaving them out. But yeah, Ohio State, I think they got into the tournament with that win. However, I just can't picture myself having them beat another team just in the first round at all. So I'd have Iowa State as well.
My favorite part about March Madness is how anything can happen, and I love taking advantage of that and saying kind of ridiculous takes. And I have Iowa State in my Elite 8.
Wow.
Yes. Talk about a bold
in
statement.
the same section with Houston and Kentucky.
Yes.
Wow.
The Cyclones are tearing it up. I mean, why not? It's March. This is what it's all about.
Yeah.
So I'm going not all in on Iowa State, but definitely
Not
to
as
the
much
Elite
as
Eight.
you're going in with Louisiana
I
State.
mean, LSU will be your 2019 national champions. You heard it here first. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Jumping down to Tulsa game 2, Houston 3, Georgia State 14. I know you guys have been talking about, like, Houston lost their championship game.
They did.
They're done. They're not going to do well.
I don't care about that, honestly. I have Houston in the Elite Eight.
I have Houston. Wow, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh.
Frown upon that all you want.
They're a good team, and I think Houston is probably going to blow out Georgia State in this game.
Well, I cut against the grain because I'm going Georgia State.
Whoa.
Like I said,
14.
literally my only basis on this is because why not March Madness? It's time to make some awesome picks, shock the world kind of thing.
Well, if we're going to do that, let's have Abilene Christian beat Kentucky.
Within reason, I think. But, I mean, who knows? I don't know a lot about either of these squads. I don't think I've watched a single Houston game this year. So I'm not very familiar on how they've been doing specifically. But we'll see. It'd be interesting.
Houston this year, the 31-3 record, 31 wins is the most they've had in school history.
Wow.
I don't think this squad is quite as good as Phi Slamma Jamma back in the day.
Yeah.
However, I just feel like Houston's one of those teams this year who didn't get disrespected with a 3 seed, but they're definitely like worthy of competing with those 1s and 2s.
I think they were talking about earlier in the season too. Houston's playing in this nice new arena, and they took off like this. So it might be the arena, but if they show up in this tournament, it's not the arena. It's them.
I do have one more comment, if
Go
that's
ahead.
all right about
Yeah,
that.
no, you're
Just
good.
to kind of backtrack a little bit. You see just about every year one of the top seeds falling off to someone you're like, wait, who is that school again? You see it with Virginia. You see it with Michigan State in the first round. And I feel like this game, it might not be the most likely to do that, but I think it has a little bit of potential. So I'm just kind of keeping my head above water on that assumption.
All right.
All right, heading down into the Jacksonville games, final set here. Wofford, how do you say it?
Waffaford.
Waffaford or something like that. You guys
even know who
what
that
it
is, to be honest.
Number 7 and Seton Hall. I've been pushing for Seton Hall this whole season. They have
Absolutely.
had huge wins. I'm like, why aren't they in the top 25? And I think this is their time to shine. They got to the conference championship game, Big East, lost to Villanova. But I think Seton Hall is a good team this year. I have them running to the Elite 8, losing to North
Wow.
Carolina. But
Wow.
I think they're going to...
Hot take alert.
yeah, hot take, blue hot. Blue hot, go Pirates. I have Seton Hall moving forward. I know a lot of people have some strong feelings about Wofford or...
It's Wofford.
I think it's
It's-
just
it's-
Wofford.
It's just Wofford, bro. It's
Okay,
making a
I
joke.
don't know why this is screwing me up so much. Wofford. A lot of people think highly upon this team, and granted, they are a good squad, but when you're Seton Hall playing teams like Villanova, Marquette, St. John's...
All season long, yeah.
All season, I think it's Seton Hall here, and I think Seton Hall is going to be a good squad.
I agree with you on that one. I'll go with Seton Hall, the Pirates. But Wofford...
Drew's getting ready. He's leaning into the mic, and he's like, yep.
Wofford with only 4 losses on the year. I definitely see the hype about them. I don't necessarily think they deserved as high as a 7 seed. However, either way, I'm going with Seton Hall in this one. Drew?
Yep.
Final game, Kentucky, number 2. They haven't had the strongest season, but you know what? It's Kentucky, and they're just a good program in general. Playing 15 Abilene Christian. If this is an upset, it's gonna be crazy. But I have Kentucky.
Hey, maybe it's Abilene. I'm sorry, I
Wah,
had
wah.
to. I had to, but no, I got the Wildcats.
Yes. It's another squad that is kind of a powerhouse-ish. It's one of those other big-name schools
I don't
when
think
it comes
there's
to
any-
basketball.
I don't think there's any ish or kinda about it. Kentucky's definitely
Right,
that.
but like as I was gonna say that I haven't watched a single game of them this year. It's another one of those teams where they flew under my radar. So I just picked Kentucky, kind of like how I picked Kansas, just because I know that they've been good and they're supposed to be good, I guess.
Yep.
Yep. Well, we've gotten through the entire bracket. One thing I've just kind of been thinking about things along the way. We're not very prepared with this. This is the first time we've done this, but
That's an understatement.
So, when looking at our brackets, who is your biggest surprise of the tournament? You know, who is going to be the one that nobody expects to get far? I'm kind of looking at mine because I kind of went all over the place, but
I honestly think for me, mine is probably going to end up being Kansas State, because Kansas State is, like I mentioned earlier, they're just one of those teams that I think is just kind of under the radar, but also that team that everyone's kind of afraid of. And I honestly believe that South region is the weakest of the four. And I feel like that is one way that Kansas State is going to, as a 4 seed, just push all the way to the Elite Eight and possibly even the Final Four. Again, I haven't 100% decided in my heart in that Kansas State-Purdue matchup, but like Kansas State, I feel like they have just as good an opportunity as Virginia, Tennessee, Purdue, Wisconsin to make it out of that region.
I mean, obviously, my answer would it's LSU. I mean, but I'm going to focus on someone else just for the sake of the conversation. 100% agree with Kansas State. I have them locked in my Final Four. I think they're great. My others it's not really a sleeper because they're a 3 seed, but Texas Tech. I mean, this is a team that does not have a history of just running a tournament, like running a bracket. I think that there's going to be some upsets here. I think that they'll upset Buffalo. I think they'll upset Michigan. It's going to be, I think that's one of those games where every time you watch Texas Tech play, it'll either be a close game or just a great game in general to watch.
Mm-hmm. I personally have Seton Hall going to the Elite Eight. I believe in this team. A team that beats Marquette, Villanova, and Marquette twice and Villanova in their last 5 games of the season. Mm-hmm. This team's ready, and they've been really challenged this year, in my opinion. I think Seton Hall is going to do some damage here. I mean, they have a win over Maryland. They've beaten Kentucky this year. They've beaten, not too impressive when you'd say it now, but they've beaten Miami, who didn't get into the tournament. They're good last year, but they've beaten St. John's. I think they're just ready. I think they're ready to go. I think they're going to be a team that's going to surprise a lot of people for sure. So one thing that this is probably going to be the last thing we're going to do because we've done this for a while now. But one thing that being in this state specifically, a lot of people are probably either very happy or very upset that IU didn't get in. Personally, I guess we'll just do some takes. Personally, I'm happy. Not because I don't like IU. I don't. But this team, they're just overrated. And there's the talents there, but they're young and they're not clicking. And everybody's saying like, oh, well, Romeo's going to bail us out and he's going to take us all the way. And it's just like, come on, guys. I mean, this team, they're probably going to get to like second, third round in the NIT. But I just think they deserve to be out.
I 100% agree with that, and I think that I honestly believe that, I mean, they were one of the first 4 teams out this year, but I honestly believe that with that, I think they needed to beat Ohio State in that second round. They needed to beat Michigan State the following round for a 3rd time this year. Which, by the way, Jack, you mentioned earlier about how Florida is a 10 seed against Nevada. You said how you honestly think that Florida, the only reason they're in the tournament is because of their wins over LSU this year. You could honestly kind of look at it in a similar way with Indiana, just because it's like, oh, well, they beat Michigan State twice. But the only problem is they were other than those 2 games, they were honestly awful in conference play in the Big Ten. So, I mean, when you look at it from that standpoint, like, they started out, 12-2, something like that? They beat Louisville on the road. Did they beat Marquette, or was that just down to the wire?
Good question.
But, they competed with Marquette big time. So, I mean, they had the resume in the non-conference for sure, but then Big Ten play hit, and like they just completely fell like off the face of the earth. It seemed like
They beat Marquette by a sizable margin,
Yeah, there you
96
go.
to 73, but that was,
Okay.
it was the third game of the season.
Well, yeah, but still, I mean, IU started out so strong, and then the wheels flew off.
I have a question for you, Zach.
Yeah.
So are you advocating that they should or should not be in? Because you're
No.
kind of on both.
Yeah,
what
I
it
get
sounds
you.
like.
I'm saying I'm bringing up the opposition here.
Okay.
So like I agree with them being out.
Right.
And it's not just because I'm a Purdue fan and that being one of the biggest rivalries in college basketball, but because I'm not too big on that rivalry. Honestly, I love beating IU from a Purdue fan's perspective, but it's not my number one goal for the team, every year. But no, I agree with Jack in a sense where I think the committee got it right, leaving IU out, and I am certainly not one of the fans out there who is unhappy with IU not making the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think IU played. I mean, the Big Ten has been so hard this year just because of the gritty competition. I don't want to steer the conversation, but since IU's out, I don't even think Florida should be in at this point. I mean, I'm convinced that, like you said, they're super similar situations. Obviously, comparing conferences is really hard.
Yeah.
Because every conference is so different. But when you're such a big team and you get a 10 seed, as Florida did, I mean, come on. That's a bold move. And I don't know. I don't want to steer it into whether Florida should be in or not because I know it's about IU, but they're very similar situations.
Yeah, well, I think IU would have got an 11 at best, but I probably would have given them a 12 if they got in at all. But no, I don't. I don't see. I didn't see IU as soon as they hit like rock bottom. It seemed like, and they went on that big losing streak. I thought there was no chance for them unless they just ran the table and like went to the Big Ten championship. But obviously, losing in the first round, that didn't really help them much. So.
Well, that's kind of our take on all the first round games and kind of all the talks right now about March Madness. In this week's issue coming out on Thursday, we'll have all different March Madness content in the sports section. Drew, you're actually working on a piece about the economics of March Madness.
Yes.
Could you explain that a little bit?
I'm actually finding some really cool stuff. So, obviously, when millions of people participate in such a big event, there's money to be made everywhere. So, like, Minneapolis is hosting the Final Four, like the gritty games. They're going to probably make an economic stimulant over $100 million just in the Twin Cities alone. When you talk about gambling, last year $10 billion was gambled in the month of March just on college football. Like, this is crazy.
College basketball?
I mean.
Did I just say football?
Yeah.
You did just say football.
I heard, yeah. You said
Okay, well,
football.
college basketball.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of money to be made. There's actually a lot of money to lose as well as something I'm kind of focusing on, like workplace stimulant when it comes to March because of this giant distraction. I know when I was in high school, we would always hide our phones and watch basketball games during the day, and you wouldn't get anything done. So I'm really diving into who's making money, how much are they making, how much are people paying to take in this entertainment.
Well, that's Drew's piece. That's going to be headed on the way as well, too. Zach will have an opinion piece later in the week. I don't want to give too much away with that. It should be pretty interesting.
No, I'll go ahead and fill them in a little bit.
All right, give them a sneak preview.
That'll be going out tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. All right, so be on the lookout for that. It's basically going to be breaking down my bracket, but not the bracket that I just exposed to you guys. It'll be a little bit different. More along the lines of say what their mascots look like, something like that. So
Go Iowa State.
So that is a good one. I will say the Miami Hurricanes are not in it this year, so they won't be winning the whole thing like I have in years past. There's a little hint for you guys in case you were interested, but. But yeah, remember, tomorrow, 3 p.m., Ball State Daily News, all right?
Yep, and we'll have content all throughout the week. And handful of that will be featured in our print issue on Thursday, ranging from stuff from the return of Zion Williamson to watch parties, best mascots, different wagers that are going on. So yeah, that's what's going on with the Ball State Daily News and March Madness content this week. And yeah, thank you guys for listening to us this week, and we're gonna try to get this started up all throughout the week. And yeah, so we'll try to see you Sunday or whenever. Yep.
Go Tigers.
Yep.